there was an idea to bring together a group of movies together and form what is considered to be one of the most popular movie series of the past decade, I'd say.
I would say so, but if you ask current MCU fans, they would say that MCU is dead in the water and doesn't hold that same power. Today, we're going to be doing a tier ranking of Phase 1, more phases to come in additional videos. We got S tier being cream of the crop, perfect MCU films. We got A being freaking awesome, not quite that S tier level. We got the B ranking, which is borderline between awesome and just it's all right movie. You got C, which means it's an all right movie.
But you forget about it the second you watch it.
You don't really like it, but you don't dislike it. D is we don't like the movie.
Yeah.
And then F is just it's atrocious.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we're gonna get into it, starting with the Godfather of the MCU, Iron Man 1.
Chairman of the board.
Chairman of the board.
You start.
I start. All right. I will say, I think this movie has something over all the other movies. It has that impact of being the very first one.
Yeah.
So I feel that the ranking on this might be a little skewed because of that. For me, it's going to be an A. In my heart, deep down, I'm like, man, it's kind of a B to me, but when I think about the impact that it had and thinking that none of these other movies existed at the time, like, imagine seeing this, because I think it's good to put in perspective when a movie comes out, what's going on around it and stuff like that. And I think about 2008, what was going on in the superhero, comic book world, aside from, like, The Dark Knight and stuff like that. At the time, there wasn't really anything.
Before that, it was probably Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And that was all DC, because with Marvel, all Marvel had...
Spider-Man.
Well, not just... The last film they made before Iron Man was Fantastic Four, The Rise of the Silver Surfer. So,
yeah, I forgot the movie existed.
Yeah.
So I would say, for its time, obviously it's a groundbreaking movie because the MCU still exists to this day.
Yeah.
So without the excessive Iron Man, I don't think that was going to be able, because, Robert Downey was a big part, especially in Phase 1. You had 2 movies from him, and he had probably more screen time than anyone in the Avengers.
He did.
So I think if it failed, it wouldn't. The MCU wouldn't exist today. But I say all that to say, it's an A for me, almost a high B, but because of that impact, it's an A. I love Robert Downey as Iron Man, obviously. I love the acting.
Yeah.
I like the dialogue a lot. I like a lot of practical effects that they use.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's CG, but Jon Favreau is pretty big
on using practical stuff.
Using practical until Iron Man 2 gets a little out of hand with the digital stuff.
Yeah, but at that point,
that's studio.
Yeah, that's when it started to become like Favreau's
Right.
thing and more like Marvel Studios.
Right, but Favreau was really good about the effects and whatnot. I also love Terrence Howard as Rhodey compared to Don Cheadle. I didn't like Don Cheadle playing Rhodey until Secret Invasion. And I think it's because what he had to work with in Secret Invasion, which I'll get to Secret Invasion another time. But I liked Terrence Howard's chemistry with Robert better than the chemistry with Don and Robert. But also, Terrence just came off as a lot more like smooth to me, I guess. There's just something there.
He did come off smooth. I'll give him that.
There's something there to his performance that I prefer over any of the Rhodey performances. So it's a shame of what happened with him and Marvel. But I like their chemistry. I like the whole story arc of Iron Man's character. The only thing that I really kind of dislike about the film is that third act with Obadiah. Like, when you figure out he's the villain, it's kind of cool for a minute, but then it kind of goes into, like, goofy territory, or he's making the big Iron Man suit, and then he just looks goofy in the suit.
I'm deeply enjoying the suit!
Yeah, and it's like, he has his helmet off, especially when he's trying to shoot, Iron Man on top.
Hold still, you little prick!
Yeah, it's supposed to be an intense moment, but he looks so goofy, and then he, like, can't target right, so it's like this slow, just kind of, like, awkward, and Iron Man's just hanging on the ledge. I really don't like that scene, but I would say like that third act with, I think Obadiah really brings it down for me. But I think the humor lands very well in Iron Man. But I also think it's the MCU curse, because I think the humor is well fitted for Robert Downey's character and in Iron Man. But I think Marvel Studios is like, okay, we can apply this same type of humor to all our movies, which obviously has been a big critique of the MCU.
Obviously, some work better than others.
Right, so it's kind of a curse. But overall, man, I think this movie it's a low A for me.
So I give it an A as well. You said it's a low B in your heart. For me, it's like a very low S on my heart. And the reason
High B.
that
I say high B.
high B. I'm sorry. For me, it's a low S in my heart. But the only reason I call it an S is what you're saying before. That last third really does drag it down. The only thing I'll say about with Obadiah Stane, that whole scene with Stane, is that it's saved because of Downey's performance, especially when he's just hanging on there. Pepper, time to hit the button, and you can see.
I interject. Pepper Potts is awesome in this movie too.
Yes,
it's my favorite performance. Her chemistry.
Yeah,
with Robert.
It's really awesome.
I mean, Jeff Bridges had great chemistry with. Everyone had great chemistry with Robert Downey in this movie, I thought.
Yeah.
But her and him, like, building that kind of, like, romantic, but she's, like, his secretary, like, tension there.
And it's very hard to really get that across with superhero movies. Like, you have... I'm a soft spot for the Spider-Man movies, but, like, Mary Jane and Peter Parker, I get, people, or Sue Storm, Reed Richards in the movies, even with like say Rachel and Batman Begins.
Rachel.
Yeah, so the fact that they got that across is really well done, and of course
it brought like a very humorous, light tone to the movie.
Yeah, it's not meant to be it's a part where not of all the stuff that goes around like being held captive, being forced to make weapons to terror. There's this levity that they don't have to like hide themselves or anything. I think one thing I'll mention that you talked about with the Iron Man suit and that Favreau like to use a lot of practical effects is that one thing that should not go unnoticed is that it was designed by the late great Stan Winston.
I have no idea who that is.
The Jurassic Park, from the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park, the T-1000 and the T-800.
T-1000?
And the T-800 from Terminator 2. He is like the guy you go to for like practical effects and animatronics. Like he is one of the top tier guys, and his work is all on the screen with Iron Man, and it is stellar stuff. The action is really good. The only reason I give Iron Man an A, even though I say in my heart it's an S, is because the last third does drag it down, but it's only an A, but it stays an A because the first two acts, especially that first act, is just so rock solid good.
They carry the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and
you care about the characters at that point. I mean, you care about Pepper, you care about Rhodey, you care about
Tony. Especially when and they make him out to be the smug, pompous, jackass and everything, but he still comes off as likable. Like even the first scene, it's just you can't help but just like this guy. You want to be around with, and you want to see him do better. The whole time where he's with Jensen, that whole stuff was really good, and he's only in like I said that first third. And
yeah, also the guy who played Jensen, he made a really profound impact in the short time that he had in the movie.
Yeah, and I always remembered the last few lines he said. It's like, don't waste your time, Stark. That sort of thing. And it ends off with a cool scene where he's walking out of the cave and he's just, my turn.
Yeah.
Fire. And I'm just a sucker for movies that show how to them making stuff, and him just in his house all by himself making the armor and everything. It just makes you feel good just watching it, and when it actually does get to the action, when he's fighting back the terrorists now with the Mark III armor and everything, it just gets you all jolted up and everything. So
I do think that Iron Man has one of the best ending scenes where he's at the press conference.
I was just about to think
I am Iron Man, and the freaking Black Sabbath kicks in.
Yeah,
and one of the coolest ending scenes.
AC/DC, thank you very much. But yeah, it's that Oh man,
And also, it birthed the the end credit scenes with Nick Fury at the end. So that was like the ultimate cherry at the time before MCU
I'm
was
here to tell
mass
you about the Avengers
produced.
Initiative.
Yeah, it was a huge freaking deal.
People didn't even notice there even was an end credit scene until
Yeah.
like after it was released, because it was back in a time when people weren't staying around for credits.
Yeah. So Iron Man for me, man, it's an A.
It's an A all the way.
But that takes us to the sometimes forgotten film with Edward Norton, The Incredible Hulk. I'm gonna let you start this one off.
I give it a B. I really think this gets way too overhated a little too much. I think people, like you said, it gets forgotten way too much. It also goes and show that the last film that came before this, the last Hulk film that came before this with Eric Bana, kind of just goes without saying we are not the biggest fan of that movie when that came out. So just to see them finally do the Incredible Hulk doing what he does best, being this behemoth that's, just smashes stuff and, kicks ass. That's all you really needed.
And I'm also a B, so I'm gonna chime in with you as well since we're the same ranking. It's a B for me. He also gives off that horrifying feel to him. Like when
Yeah.
Edward Norton first becomes Hulk in that little factory,
Yeah.
like you kind of see the perspective from the other people and like the military, and it's like a horrifying experience, like a monster, how the Incredible Hulk should feel, and it translates that to screen where you're like, oh yeah, you buy into the fact that this is a very fearsome creature.
We don't even see his face until
not like a goofy Hulk that you get later in the MCU.
Yeah.
Like you really are terrified of him.
It actually showed what it is. He is a monster, and we don't even see his face throughout the whole first scene that he's introduced. It's just him in the shadows and everything. And when it's finally technically over, that's when they show it, and it's like this menacing
his teeth
grimace,
and-
and the glowing beady eyes. That I also would say it's kind of like the fugitive, but for superhero movies, because he's always on the run from the military and such.
And Edward Norton is great. I'd prefer him over Mark Ruffalo because
He is a good banner.
he sells more the very intellectual scientist. Like you really believe that he is in gamma radiation. You don't get that feeling from Mark Ruffalo. Ruffalo always seems out of place, and he doesn't really sell you that he's an intelligent guy. He just seems out of place. But Edward Norton really sells you on that, and I think Edward Norton's very good with the duality of like you see it's like a curse. Like he's actively trying to get rid of the Hulk. Like it's ruining his life. Like you see that like that pain and that frustration. You see him trying to like meditate and learn things. Like you get a sense of his inner turmoil and struggle that I don't feel that you really get with Mark Ruffalo later on.
He feels like a guy who is in the middle of hell and is trying to climb his way out of it. That's how I would kind of put it.
Yeah, for sure.
And even with like stuff that he wants to get all passionate about, but he doesn't. Like there's a scene where he's trying to embrace what is it, Betty Ross, and he can't go too far because the heartbeat will go off, and that's a nice thing because you could just feel that disappointment there in many ways than one. And like Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky, also
Great villain.
Yeah, like he was. I love the look. It doesn't look like the comic, but it's a point where I don't really care. It just looks so cool, and I like the fact that he can actually talk articulately. It's not grunts and roars,
which can be even more fearsome.
Yeah, because that there's a consciousness in there. And you kind of do feel for this guy at the same time, too, because, he's being smug, too. Like, he's, walking up to the Hulk after just doing backflips and, blocking, hits on him. And he's just like, is that all you got? And he takes a hit to the tree like a champ and everything. And when you see him all bandaged up and him, shooting up like the faulty super serum and everything, you can hear it go straight into its bones. It's just like
Yeah.
he's a good villain, but man, he is going through a lot of
Yeah,
it.
and I also think Incredible Hulk has one of the better third acts in the final fight.
It does.
It's like I think one of the most underrated fights in the MCU because I think people just like to crap on this movie or whatnot, which I've never understood. But that fight with Abomination, Incredible Hulk, that blows out freaking Iron Man fighting the Ironmonger in Iron Man 1. Like it's a way better freaking fight.
You know, and,
Throughout the city and the way it ends with Hulk freaking choking him with the
like trying to
chain,
strangle
and then
him
when
with
he
the
finally
chain.
does Hulk smash, like it feels earned.
It does.
That whole final sequence is really good.
And then the last last thing he said, Bertie, that just really was the whole thing. And of course, like the final shot where he's meditating, and then you can see that he's finally got control of it.
I think it's for me it's kind of like maybe a high B. The only thing that stops it from being awesome to me is the plot is kind of generic. Like you know where everything's going is how I feel. Like everything's predictable, but it's still entertaining to watch.
I could see that.
And I like Edward Norton and Tim Roth in it. I like the action in it, but it's like you kind of know what you're getting. And I also, we might disagree on this, but I find Liv Tyler like really annoying in the movie, especially in the third act where she's just like screaming a lot and just it's like really just annoying to me.
I don't find her annoying, but at the same time,
she kind of just feels like she's there.
The damsel, or not damsel, but just the girlfriend. Although I will say though,
also before I forget, that I don't know the actor's name. I've never liked him in anything that I've seen him in. He's like tries to be funny, but I don't find him funny. The guy who becomes the leader, who gets the thing in his head.
Oh, Tim Blake Nelson.
I don't like him. Like it's a humor that is very forced, and especially when it's supposed to be like a very like intense thing when he's trying to basically cure the Hulk or whatever. Like his whole like the machines aren't working, and he's like trying to get the like it's very like overdone.
Yeah, and especially like there's this whole scene is about him, transforming into the Hulk, and it's a very, how do I even put it? A very intense moment and everything. And here he is like, you gotta be kidding me! Come on, like, I get where you're coming from. I liked him fine, but at the same time, they were that's another thing that's a fault in the movie, that they were building up that he was supposed to be coming back in the MCU somehow, and he never comes back. And it's so weird too because William Hurt, who plays
he's
Ross,
coming back in apparently in Captain America, the new
really
yes, as a leader.
I'll believe it when I see it. But the only other thing I can think of is that I really like. I kind of agree, I like the action, and the story is very generic. What they do show up the action, I do like. I would honestly say it could have gone a little far with gone a little bit more with the action, just a little bit more. The stuff that we got was really great, but I would have liked to have seen like a few other more, just a little bit more. But when it does, the stuff that does work, like the opening credits, just showing him what happened without actually being, having to tell half the movie that way.
Yeah.
I was all for that. I was kind of wishing they would have done the same thing with, they got Spider-Man into the MCU. Just have the opening credits, just showing you how, what happened to him, and just leave it at that. But, that's the one thing I really think, that I really thought a lot of Marvel movies should have, taken from that. So
for sure, solid B.
Yeah, solid B.
That brings us to the next movie, sequel to Iron Man 1, directed by Jon Favreau.
You're up,
Iron Man 2. I'm up.
Yep.
I don't like this film. It's a B for me. You know what? I've seen this movie quite a handful of times. It's not one that I need to rewatch or I'm misremembering. I have like a vivid memory from start to finish of that movie, and I just don't like it. There's too much going on with the introduction of Black Widow, and you have Mickey Rourke's Whiplash, and you have Justin Hammer, and you have Rhodey trying to be War Machine, and you got Iron Man dealing with his like disease. Just like a lot going on, and then Shield's trying to babysit him, and then he's like trying to find the new element. It's like There's a lot going on there, and I think the execution's very poor. It feels like it's a movie that there's a lot of studio interference in, and Mickey Rourke even made comments how he felt Jon Favreau was neutered, was I think his exact words when making this film. And I know Mickey Rourke was displeased with his character in the movie. Felt like he kind of got butchered and didn't have as much, I guess, material and screen time. And I know he talks about how he's the one that came up with the bird, which I don't know.
I believe it.
In defense of pushing back on Mickey Rourke, I don't. He basically was saying that his villain didn't have as much layers as what there initially was, and he was basically saying that it was his idea to bring the bird in, but I don't see how that really layers your character anymore. I thought it was kind of just a stupid joke in the thing, but anyway, there's a lot going on. Studio interference. I like Sam Rockwell. That's his name.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell.
I love him as an actor, and even though he didn't have like a whole lot given to him in this, like he fits that role so perfectly, and he's always engaging on screen. Sometimes it gets like the humor gets a little stale.
He's a character. I'm surprised they didn't come back.
He was supposed to come back in Armor Wars.
Oh well, there you go.
I don't know what happened with that. But like the humor gets really stale in Iron Man 2 compared to Iron Man 1, to where it's like it's not funny to me anymore. Like they're going too much, especially in the scene where Iron Man is in the I think it's the Senate hearing or whatever. Like, and then the senator's like, F you, Mr. Stark, F you. Like that stuff was like really overdone and it wasn't like funny. But Sam Rockwell is a big part of that, where it's always a joke when he's on screen, and he's great and engaging, and I really like him. And the funniest scene in the movie does come from him. He's like, I don't know if you know this, but I don't speak Russian. That's the best scene of the film.
I forgot about that.
Talking
but you're
to
right.
Mickey Rourke. I really liked him. Now, people might disagree with me on this. I didn't like Mickey Rourke in the movie at all. He wasn't compelling to me. Like, as much as Sam Rockwell was always joking and goofy, I much prefer a scene with him than Mickey Rourke trying to act like he knows about technology. So yeah, that's with the villains, and also the end, and he's in that just really crappy CGI looking suit.
It looks so generic as hell.
Yeah, and like the final fight was just like really lackluster and whatnot.
Except for when it's just Iron Man and War Machine just kicking ass, defeating the drones. I can't say that wasn't a lot of fun. Me personally, I'm a C. Iron Man 2 is a C for me. Pretty much for what he's saying, like the biggest insult I can really say about it is like you were pretty much just saying all the stuff that was listed. It goes nowhere. Sam Rockwell, apart from being in Armor Wars, goes nowhere.
I guess he got arrested. I mean, the cops showed up, and that's like the last time you saw him.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo, like villain that gets caught, but he's gonna be back.
Yeah, and he doesn't. Him dealing with stuff, gets remedied up real quickly, and we don't even know we know it's supposed to be like a new element, but we don't know what he was missing in the first place. We know there's like this really cool scene with the holograms that he was doing mock-up of the original Stark Expo, but we don't even know what we're seeing, so it doesn't really feel anything. S.H.I.E.L.D. babysitting Tony goes nowhere. He just goes and screws off to doing whatever he wants.
I think it was just an excuse to get Nick Fury in the movie.
I guess. But it's about as good of an excuse to having Black Widow appear, which, it's very tacked on. But, as far as, like, with Mickey Rourke, I could see where there could have been a lot of layers, because they just really just... You see that... I know you disagree on this, but the opening scene where he's just, in this, like, this bum whatever, apartment,
Russia.
In Russia, and, sees his father die. And he's just like, well, first off, anyone would look awkward or whatever, just shouting, and, in mourning for, a loved one just dying. All the while, the person, took all the glories. Now
we need to watch that scene after this.
Yeah. But it's like you have like this whole raw emotion on one scene, and the rest he's just like smooth. Like he has no emotion, even when he's just, half naked, electric whipping, race cars and not. And yeah, I could see like they were trying to do, but the biggest problem is that he is barely in the damn film. Most of it is either, Justin Hammer, which I agree is really awesome, or Stark dealing with this stuff. And
Yeah.
we already, and I don't know what. I always get like a little bit of a pet peeve with movies where it has a main character that everyone, even like their close friends, seem to be like against him for whatever reason. And granted, he's dying and he's making a lot of dumb decisions. Like I said, the birthday party
It's
is
a very cliche thing, and it's like, yeah, Pepper's mad at him, and Rhodey's mad at him, and everybody's mad at him, and
and yeah, it's in the whole scene where Rhodey and Tony, they're having like a fight and they're in the armor. It's like, okay, sometimes it looks cool, but they're like friends. They're gonna get back together. It's not like, would it be more cooler if, it was the villain that he was fighting with?
also that whole sequence is a waste and just stupid. Like the way they handle his alcohol
Demon in a bottle
theme
story.
was
Again,
just atrocious.
nothing goes anywhere, and it just seems like it was just there because, well, it's the sequel. That's what people are ganging up to see. And yeah, even that whole last scene where he's talking to Fury, saying like the Iron Man is a part of the Avengers, but Tony isn't. Well, we'll see where that goes. And it's nothing. It's really nothing. It's just like
he'll be in the Avengers.
yeah, it's a throw. And that whole part
Yeah.
was just a throw. Solved up in a throwaway line
Yeah,
in the
and
first
then
Avengers.
I hate movies that retroactively try to make something canon, and they did that with that stupid little kid. Oh yeah, that's Peter Parker. No, nah, dude, it's not Peter Parker. I don't care what Kevin Feige says, what John Watts said. That's not Peter Parker.
Yeah, it's
Years later, oh yeah, that's actually this is this. Like, nah,
what is Peter Parker doing in Malibu anyway?
he's at the expo.
Or wherever the or New York or wherever.
Yeah, nah, that's not Peter Parker. I don't care. They say.
So, but yeah, that not much else to say about Iron Man 2. It looked fun. There were fun stuff in it. It's like I don't know, like but you are right. There are sometimes the humor doesn't fall out. Sometimes it doesn't. Some things doesn't have to be an actual funny joke or whatever. It's just like some scenes you look at and you go, you just can't help but just bewilderment, like seeing Iron Man in a donut, eating after dealing with a hangover. It's like, while Nick Fury's dressing up as, a pirate from SWAT. It's like, I didn't leave. You need to exit the donut, or
Stupid. So yeah, D for me and C for you.
yeah, C for me.
That brings us to the next Thor, directed by old Kenneth.
Yeah, the Hamlet guy,
Yeah.
and the whatever else he made. I don't know.
He makes the. I just watched those mystery movies.
Yeah, the Death of the Nile.
Yeah,
the,
that series.
the Murder on Orient Express.
He also is a great villain in Tenet,
yes.
played by Christopher Nolan. He was great in that.
He also did a good job in Dunkirk. Yeah, that was pretty good.
But we're not here to talk about those films. We're here to talk about Thor.
And Thor for
You're
me
first on
is a C.
See,
Yeah, so it's
all right.
yeah, that's about it. It's I like Hemsworth. I like Loki. I like Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I like pretty much anything involving Asgard. I really like it. It does what this guy Kenneth Branagh does best. He brings out when it's something supposed to look grand and epic. He'll give it. Yeah, it'll be grand and epic, and you won't feel like you're laughing at something or whatever. When they get to that small town, it's not bad. It's not good either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hate Jane Foster in this as much as a lot of people do. It just, but
I don't mind her either.
But yeah, the romance do feel very weak.
It's like forced.
Yeah.
Like she just doesn't know this guy at all, and she instantly like loves this guy.
Yeah.
It's a very like shallow, not like Pepper and Tony, where you're sold on that relationship.
Yeah. I never hated Darcy. She was fine, but for me, she didn't overstay her welcome at any point, or at least not in this film anyways.
Yeah, I don't really mind her in this film either.
Yeah, so And again, kind of like Incredible Hulk, it is a very generic kind of plot. You kind of can guess where it's coming around, but at the same time, I don't mind that sort. Unless if it's done well, it's like I won't worry about that too much. And it's done pretty well. Like you feel like this pompous but still kind of charming, kind of guy. It's like, yeah, I'm the freaking god of thunder. What do you want? Or what else? But you can also come off as very brash and very bratty and everything. But he's not a Neanderthal. He's not someone who because that's the thing with like fish out of water stories. It's like they always seem like they're just like they're just so clueless to the world, like they and I get that's the joke, but the joke wears off so thin. And this is a guy who, when you say no, don't do that, he'll listen and he won't do it. That is just something that I don't know, that's something that adds something to this part to this movie.
I think the movie has a weak third act.
Yeah, that's
with him fighting the destroyer.
Yeah,
that whole sequence or whatnot.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Loki is supposed to be the villain, and he's fun for when he's on screen. But now I'm realizing he's not in it for very much. Like, he's in a few scenes, like he's talking to his brother.
He goes to the Frost Giants, and then
yeah, and you learn that he, himself is adopted, and that he does it very well. It's very well acted and everything. But again, it's clear that he gets a lot more screen time and attention in later films. So I'd say this is probably Loki's weakest film, as an appearance. But at the same time, it's not, a bad one at that either. Anthony Hopkins as Odin is fine. Again, I feel like he does a little bit. He doesn't get a lot to do in these Thor movies.
Yeah.
But he was fine as well. And yeah, you were right. The third act is kind of where it all gets weak. Because it's like, okay, he gets his powers, now he goes to Asgard, and it just feels like it's just boom, boom, boom. Like nothing really stands out in this film.
Also, it was a cool concept that in the movie when Thor breaks the bridge.
Yeah, I remember that.
But there's no real, consequence of that.
No, because he comes back.
Yeah.
He comes back in Avengers and with no explanation, so...
Right.
I don't really understand. I mean, I guess they just rebuilt it, but...
But it's supposed to be a big thing because Loki's screaming, you're never going to see her again, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
and he breaks it, and it's not a problem.
I don't know. The only other thing I can really think of is that, this was, I guess, Hawkeye's first appearance.
Oh, yeah, Hawkeye's in it for 5 seconds.
Yeah, and granted, he's in a cool...
What did you say? I'm starting to like this guy.
Yeah, you better say something. Yeah, it's like, better say something, Coulson. I'm starting to root for this guy. Which, granted, that is a cool scene, or a cool line, I mean. And it is a cool scene with Thor trying to get his hammer back, and, it's like, you're big, fought bigger. And him, just so smugly just getting out one hand to get the hammer and then just see reality just shatter. It's like it was a fun time. So
yeah, that's probably the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, and
it's a solid C for me.
It's a C. I said a lot more than I thought I would really say about this.
That brings us to Captain America: First Avenger. I think directed by Joe Johnston.
Oh yeah, the guy who gave us The Rocketeer.
Pretty sure.
And Jumanji.
This one, man, it's gonna be a C for me. I don't like it enough for it to be a B. It's not a film I really want to rewatch. I feel the same way I do about Thor. It may be a higher C, but for me, there's nothing there that makes me want to come back to the film. Especially compared to the rest of the Captain America films. I do like Chris Evans as Captain America. I think he's great in it. There's some CGI that I don't like in this movie.
Yeah.
One instance is...
A lot of the backgrounds.
Yes, that's what it is. And that takes me out of the movie. When I'm watching something, I'm trying to immerse myself in something. Those can be eyesores that take you out of the experience. And that, for me, is one of the biggest flaws of the movie, especially why I can't enjoy it as much as I want to. There's a scene that I always remember for some reason that sticks with me. It's the background. Is when he's trying to capture the get on the ship, and he's in the car with Tommy Lee and the other girl.
And Haley Atwell.
It's the background. Like, it looks so incredibly fake. And so then any dialogue that's happening in that scene, I'm completely taken out of it. Like, even Tommy Lee Jones joking, I'm not going to kiss you. Like, it's not landing with me because I'm like, man, this looks so fake.
It also don't help that.
And obviously they had to CGI him on the small body. There's no way they could, I don't think, practically do that. But it's very, like, obviously CGI. And stuff like that, compared to, like, Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 1 and Thor, I don't think it looks as good because of some scenes like that. So it kind of takes me out of the experience. I do like the story. I do think that the story is very, there's not a lot of, like...
There's not a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, twists and turns, which is fine. You're setting up an origin. I do like his story. You get sold that he is a very, good man. And I do like Chris Evans in the role. I like old girl who plays Peggy Carter.
Haley Atwell.
I like Howard Stark was freaking awesome in it.
Yeah.
I do like Red Skull is great in it. Even that Solomon guy, what's his name?
Tony.
His name's not Solomon. The little Nazi scientist. I don't know where I got Solomon from. I do like that. It's just that part's the film.
He's the wormy guy with the with the bug guy.
Yeah, I just think the film doesn't look good at parts. But also, and people might disagree with me on this, I don't like the Highland Commandos in this. They just seem like they're taking up screen time. Like, I don't care for them at all. Who plays the blonde haired guy? What's that dude's name? Neil something? He's the main Highland Commando guy.
I'm not sure.
Mustache. Anyway,
Dum Dum Dugan.
Yeah, I don't care for them in this movie.
He's the one I actually kind of remember, except for Bucky.
Yeah.
Dum Dum Dugan.
I don't care for them.
Only because it's the handlebar mustache, the top hat, or the bowler hat, and the fact that he's called Dum Dum Dugan.
Yeah. But it's also at points some of that forced humor. Not a whole lot in this movie, but one sequence, and I always was like, it's such a dumb scene, but everyone liked it, is when old girl just started making out with Captain America. She's like, oh, all the husband, all these wives are grateful. Like, it is so stupid. And then Peggy comes around and is going to shoot, like, she's just going to shoot him. And I guess hoping that he just raises the shield up. Oh, yeah, works just fine. Like, that's the type of, like, stuff in Iron Man might be funny, but it's not funny for me. It's just like, it takes me out of the experience. And it's things like that stops me from enjoying the movie fully. And I still think it's a C because I am engaged the whole time. But those little moments, they just take me out.
I get where you're coming from. As far as first off, that scene, I really did like that. But for
fair enough.
Because one thing, it's like you kind of had it coming there. It's just just seeing it's like, well, wait for business or whatever. But for me personally, I get where you're coming from, especially like with a lot of the backgrounds. And it's not enough that it's just, empty backgrounds, but they're also bland looking backgrounds. Like, it's just very dimly lit or whatever. That being said, I still give this movie a B because when this movie does look good, it looks very good. It's in a style that you have to be in it as well. It's that very old-timely Americana.
I do agree with that to a point, especially like when he's dressed up, when they're parading him about and he's doing all those plays like that. It really gives that like that timely feel to it.
Yeah,
and you feel transported in that time. When it does do it well, it does it well. I agree on that.
Yeah, and it was even kind of weird because you had that one whole montage where they're using him as like a propaganda puppet. And then you have him do another montage where he's actually out in the field and, kicking ass and everything. And it also kind of has that sort of, like him actually going into war. It also kind of has like this very, romanticized Americana feel. But it's, each of them do feel very different in their own way. And, some scenes, when they are trying to be jokey, it sometimes works. Like I remember when Cap and Bucky are zip lining through the train. It's like, this ain't revenge for whenever you threw up, right? Why would I do something like that? You know,
Yeah.
or when he first meets, Rogers. You know, now when he's all bulked up, it's like, what happened to you? You look taller. I joined the military. And even some the scenes when he is in the military, when he's still like very skinny and everything, there is something kind of, you know, there's something, like a charm to it. Like,
Sure.
the whole, try to capture the flag and everyone's just trying to
that's a good
capture,
scene.
and he's just smart. He just like takes the peg off and it's like, boom, here, and you are right though. The CG when he's on the skinny body, didn't really kind of hold up even back then. But at the same time, I'm looking at it now and I see that this could have looked a whole lot worse too. At the same
That's
time,
true.
like this
Yeah.
could have looked like what like it could have looked like
Quantumania?
yeah, it could be. It could have been like having like one of these Funko Pop heads putting on like a Barbie doll or whatever, and it doesn't look too bad. In some angles, it can look distracting, but yeah, at the same time, this could have gone. I'm amazed at how well it did hold up. And like you were saying, like Haley Atwell, Tommy Lee Jones, anything he says is like comic book worthy. Hugo Weaving as Red Skull. I love the look of it. When he actually shows his face and whatnot. Yeah, all the actors are bringing their A game. This is still really good. The only reason I'm giving it a B is because, well, the reason I'm not giving it an A is because nothing about it really stands out as much as I remember. But at the same time, it does. Steve Rogers in this film is the perfect idea thing. This movie is what Steve Rogers pretty much is in the movie. It's a character and movie are both good, but they're very straight-laced. They're very their morals are, there's no question where their morals are, and that's about all of it. I don't want to say simple, but it's kind of like it's very straightforward. And it kind of fits into the theme of
Americana.
yeah,
Old
so
timey.
and it does it with, like I said, with a lot of charm, and so that's why this is why I say it's the first one since the first Iron Man that really gave us a lot of promise of what the MCU could provide. The Hulk, the Incredible Hulk was really close, but at the same time we already had a Hulk movie. So, but the fact that they're giving us Thor and Captain America, it just seemed like very odd characters to make movies into. And Thor was fine, but Captain America took this, guy with look. You look at the comics, he dresses up like Wonder Woman's bowling ball, like brightly blues, and you have like the wings and everything, and you just go, how can you make this work and not have it be that, not make it look laughable? And I think it personally did.
I'll give it a high C. I like it more than Thor, but it's not a piece for me.
Yeah.
That brings us to the final film in Phase 1.
The one movie
The Avengers, directed by the highly esteemed Josh Whedon.
With an asterisk. You go first? I have no idea.
I'll go first, man.
You go first.
Avengers is a B for me.
B for me too.
It's not an A. I think maybe a lot of people like to think for nostalgia purposes that it's like S tier, A tier material, but I don't think it is. I do enjoy it. I think things that stop it from being awesome is that sometimes it has that TV quality to it that Josh Whedon brings.
Yeah.
Due to his background, where there's scenes that look like it's from a TV show that you're just watching on TV.
I would go so far, not just the production, but just the pacing, because
the pacing too, yeah.
Because I look at it and I go, a lot of these kind of nowadays I'm looking at it, it's like, this feels like it could be a CW show, because you have like the whole hub where they're sitting down in chairs with SHIELD agents on their computers or whatever, and it just feels kind of like whatever Star Labs from The Flash or Arrow and such. And I don't know, I just feel like just some, and again, that whole argument with the Avengers as the staff's going off and everything, just something about like, it's just very bland cinematography. Nothing. The only thing that really stood out was, they showed the staff upside down at one point, and
to kind of flip the Yeah, there's a lot of points I don't like the way the film looks, like a very TV quality to it.
Mm.
Also, there's things that were done, like creative things, like Hawkeye was sidelined pretty much the whole movie.
Yeah, that was.
Just that seemed like an episode, like a TV episode, where okay, well, Hawkeye gets brainwashed this episode, like that kind of reinforces that TV quality aspect of it, and they finally get him back towards the end of the movie. I don't care for Mark Ruffalo as Hulk.
I liked him in this one. And this,
I've never come around to Mark Ruffalo
because
as Hulk.
Well, for me, it's like when I said that Ed Norton is the guy who is, in the middle of hell and trying to climb out. It seems like, he's already trying. It seems like this is a guy who just got out of hell and he's just trying to, find his footing. Like he's just trying to, not be all to be seen or whatever. Like, the first scene we ever see him is, he's hiding or whatever. He's trying to do good, but he's just, hiding away from the world and not, trying to be in peace with this whole curse, I guess. But yeah, you did see, I pointed out, he always felt like he didn't belong there or whatever. This, I would argue, is a good example, is a good way to, it makes sense in this one because technically he shouldn't belong here. They just up and plucked him up there. So it's like, even he's like, I shouldn't even be here. Like you brought me back into this world, and I was calm. I was content with that.
That's a fair point. I do also find it annoying. I've never liked Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. I don't think I ever will, because it just comes off as goofy. But it's also dialogue.
He does get flanderized.
There's dialogue that I hate that the MCU will use, and then it sticks. The Peter Tingle, the blip, the other guy. I don't want ever hear the other, like it's like lazy writing to me, and then they overuse it. It's so dumb to me. The other guy, like talking about the monstrous Hulk, bro. Like it's just like kind of like a jokey kind of way.
Hey, big guy,
doesn't land for me.
Yeah.
But also the one scene in the movie, probably my least favorite scene that I still to this day don't understand, is when he says, "That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry," and then turns into the Hulk.
Well, that was obviously just for like... I
don't know what that means. I still don't know what that piece of dialogue means.
Yeah, I guess that is a good point. I guess that just, like I said, I guess he's just, content with the whole, with this curse. It's just like...
But I thought that the anger turns him into the Hulk. But he's always angry. I don't understand. See, I shouldn't be trying to debate what a line means. This is my point.
Yeah,
it's just like it don't make no sense to me. I'm sorry. Explain to me in the comments what that scene means, if I'm just an idiot or what.
You're probably gonna hate my guts when I bring this up, but
what?
The best way I can make sense of that line is in the first episode of She-Hulk, where she hulks out or whatever. No, wait. See? I got it covered and everything. That's the only way I can make sense of that. Where it's kind of like that, where it's just like, he could just turn back into Banner anytime he wants, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, but I didn't care for him in this movie and that whole scene. I'm just trying to get the negatives out the way.
Yeah,
and I'll get to the good.
I still have a little bit of negatives because when I went into this, and this was the movie. This was the big movie they were building up since the first Iron Man. And everyone didn't know about the post-credit scene in Iron Man 1. Everyone knew the post-credit scene in The Incredible Hulk, where you just saw Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, and it's like, are they really doing this? Are they really doing this? And you saw these movies building up more and more, and you saw them making, the finish line being this grand film, the Avengers and everything. So I kind of got my anticipation a little too high, especially when I saw how these characters would first meet. The first thing I still comes to me is when you see Cap and Tony for the first time ever, and it's like a very nothing. Like you see Iron Man come in with shoot to kill and has Loki all pinned down and everything, and you just have Cap and Tony back side to side. It's like, Mr. Stark, Captain, and that I kind of wanted a little bit. Again, you were saying like the TV quality. This feels like a TV moment there. And
Also, to go along with that, I don't like the whole sequence of Iron Man and Cap and Thor all fighting. It's like an immature. Like I could see Josh Whedon and Roger Rabbit be like, "That would be cool if like we get them together, but they don't get along at first, and they gotta have a little
which I
fight
guess would make
altercation."
sense. Which
But
would make sense on some of the, like Tony and
Yeah.
Thor, you know, having being like, you know, pompous
yeah,
egos.
but that's like a TV like cliche like. It's,
But that's also like an obligatory, like, oh, we gotta get the heroes to fight at one point and everything.
so
But
we can bring them together.
but you know they're just gonna, the next scene they're just gonna go back to get together and everything, and they do. It's like you have like the God of Thunder, you have a man trapped in time, you have a guy who turns into like this giant rage monster, you know, and they just sit around Thor. What was going on and everything, and I get that's still.
Yeah.
You know, we already had like these movies beforehand, so we don't need a whole lot to go off on. I get that. And in the end of the day, this movie is just, you know, the biggest thing about this movie is just promising what it delivers, seeing these characters in a movie together. You know, to the joke, it's like you could have them just, you know, eating lunch or whatever, and people will watch it, which they do, but just a little bit more. I mean, you were building it up for it to be this big of a thing, and I'd want it to feel like it's a big deal.
Yeah. Which later Avengers movies do make you feel. The Russo brothers do a good job of making it feel like it's a big freaking event. Whereas Josh Whedon doesn't land that, I don't think, with Avengers or Age of Ultron later on.
Well, some scenes they do, like I can get into the good stuff here, like when the action does hit, like the final fight in New York. I thought it was some of the funnest stuff.
It's a good sequence.
Yeah, this is where you're saying like we keep saying like it's like TV quality, but it also I would even go as far as say like fan film-ish and everything, but in like a fan film in the best way, because you have like some shots in it that I would only see like a fan do, like a fan film would do. Not like, you know, I'm talking about like, you know, sweeping shots of seeing the heroes, you know, fight around the city.
Sorry, I interject here.
Go ahead, man.
I've never liked the iconic scene of them spinning them around and showing them in their poses. I'd never liked that. And the reason I don't is because what they do with Black Widow, where it seems like, okay, this is... Maybe they found something cool for her to do, but everyone's spinning around, and what she get to do? She gets to reload her gun.
Yeah.
Like, and they're all doing it at the same time. That's like, it's a very gimmicky, like, takes me out of the film, and it's just like the money shot that they call it. And it's like a very immature thing to me.
But again, that
made
is
for like 12-year-olds, which is the Avengers. So
yeah, but again, I can
understand it.
But again, I can see how, you know, someone who like a fan of these kinds of movies or these comics would want to have a shot like that together. Like it brings out like the little kid in you, I guess, you know, where and again, like for a while when this film was new, people were saying like this is what the Transformers movies should have been, where you have all these, you know, brightly primary colored, you know, heroes, and they're fighting like, you know, there's no questioning who's who and who's the good guys, who's the bad guys and everything, whereas in say Transformers it's like it's just metal on metal, all you see are just the blue eyes and the red eyes, and it's very hard to see and everything. So I mean it's kind of weird to say it's like, well, that's, you know, Transformers, like who cares, but it's just nice to know how you can see it done well.
Sure.
So it's a weird way to compare it to the Transformers, but that's, you know, the only way I can really put it.
I do like Iron Man's sacrifice in the movie.
I do too. I really like that as well.
And I think he had more screen time than everybody else, but he's great. He's great in the movie. But I do like him sacrifice himself even though he survived, like making that.
I like Cap, you know, questioning S.H.I.E.L.D. as he goes through and everything. I like the small little interactions with, you know, like, I know you're not big on Ruffalo, but him talking to Tony and everything about like, hey, I had this, you know, deal in sight. This could be like, this is sort of like your deal and everything. The little talk with, you know, Thor, it's like, okay, here's what happened to Jane, you know, didn't need to add that, but they did, and it's always cool. And I like that every member of the Avengers, including Fury, all has at least one scene with Loki. That's the one thing that in superheroes...
I do really like Loki in this movie.
Yeah, he really is a lot better in
One
this.
of my favorite scenes is when he's taking the dude's eyeballs.
Yeah, that
That I like that scene a lot.
that was like
You
old
just see the
school.
panic of everybody, and he's just sitting there, just
To me, like you're talking to a guy who grew up watching like the original Marvel films, like the first X-Men, the first Spider-Man, who will do like this sort of graphic, non-graphic kind of, visceral kind of stuff there, and that felt like something like early 2000 in a good way, in a really good way.
for sure.
Yeah, and every now and then, there are some lines that I can think of that I just enjoyed. It's like, yeah, he's my brother. He killed millions of people. He's adopted. Like, yeah, in the long run, yeah, they are kind of dumb, but they're the fun kind of dumb. Where it's a movie where you don't mind turning your brain off, and because there's a lot of stuff in it that if you're looking for like questions, you'll have no issue finding. But I don't care because I'm just having a fun time.
Yeah, same. That's why I think it's a B.
Yeah, B.
And that wraps up our Phase 1 tier list. Let us know your own tier list below. You can engage us in conversation below. I welcome anyone's opinions. I'm not going to get butthurt. I'm passionate, though. But
What he said.
we're nerds. Talk about passionate stuff. Our list isn't the right list. I mean, for me it is, but, that's why it is my list, and I'll still argue those things, but you're entitled to your opinion. But until next time,
Love,
peace out.
peace and chicken grease.